Welcome back to this retrospective slash review for the game DEcapAttack, which I feel is a pretty good game to play around Halloween time. So very timely this video and this playthrough that I've done recently on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you some of my brief thoughts on the game, and yep, go ahead and jump right into it. So basically, I will say this is a relatively early Genesis game. Came out in 1991, so you might even be able to call it a mid-life game for the system, as the system had been on the market for roughly about 2.5, 3 years or so by the time this game came out. I'm not entirely sure of the full backstory of it, other than the fact that I think they said, I believe Vic Tokai was the company that put this out. I'm not too familiar with a lot of their stuff, but apparently they took an existing game from Japan. I think they reskinned it, but you don't want to quote me on that because I could be completely wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. But anyway, initially when I played through the game, I did use a lot of save states because I, do videos like each level basically. And so I wanted to go ahead and play the game accurately as if you had been playing it on a Genesis, so no save states or anything. So that's what this video here in the background is. It's me playing it, without any save states or hardcore mode, as the Retro Achievements site considers it basically. And it's a good thing I did that, because basically when you're using save states, the game is admittedly quite a bit easier. I mean, you are tempted, of course, to abuse the system and get a whole bunch of extra lives at the bonus stage area, which I did. I definitely did do that during the my initial playthrough for certain. But I didn't do that here the second time around, and for certain, basically, I did get a little bit punished at those bonus games. I don't really think I got a lot of good items out of it. Certainly not a lot of one-ups for sure. So the whole time I was playing through it again, on hardcore mode, I basically was pretty low with all my lives. Having said that, I did beat the game without using any continues, and beat it in one sit through. I think it took me about 2 hours to play through the game again on the second time. Now, I will say one thing that I feel I did better the second time around was those poles in the middle of the stages. Now that I figured out how to use them to regain health, I was able to actually prolong my playthrough, and actually, I want to say the last 4 or 5 of the areas I actually got through without even dying once. So that's actually somewhat impressive. Not to toot my own horn, but it is a little more challenging of a game if you do it without save states. Having said that, it's only a little more challenging. I think the game itself is still fairly easy. It's an easy game. I do think it is an attractive looking game. I think it's very colorful. I just love the cartoony aspect of it. It's just one of those types of games where, yeah, it's a Halloween thing, but it's not a gruesome looking type game. And every now and then, to play a little cutesy platformer type game that does have that Halloween theme to it, it's worth doing. I enjoy doing it here and there. So from that perspective, I think the visuals of this game suit it very well. Likewise, the music itself, I don't know if I would say the music is top tier, especially on the Genesis or any other platform, but at the same time, it's actually quite catchy. And I get a lot of those tunes, they just kind of get in your head and they get stuck there. So from that perspective, I think you could basically say that's a good sign for the game, that the tunes are catchy to the point where you kind of sit there and hum them to yourself because they're so good. So, like I said, probably not on the same level as, say, Sonic or some of the other better Genesis games, but I think it's still actually a very good soundtrack. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Controls are that's probably one of the areas I think that this game would probably get criticized the most on, and probably rightfully so, to be completely fair. It is a bit of a slippery game, for lack of a better word, and I think that's probably the best word you can use to describe it. And there were times where it got to be a little bit frustrating, where the animations of the game worked against me. So when I say the animations, I mean like basically when your character Chuck gets on the end of a ledge, basically, kind of like how Sonic, they do their hands are waving around kind of thing. Well, unfortunately for me, that would a lot of times result in me getting hit or just, really messed up because I couldn't do anything with my character. And it was much more prolonged here in this game, I feel, than in other games where it was just kind of like a nice touch. It actually literally affected your ability to move and do things because you would be kind of frozen in place to the point where you just couldn't do anything. So from that perspective, it's I don't want to say it's a bad controlling game, but the controls aren't as tight as, say, other platformers, especially on the Genesis, for certain. It's definitely something to keep in mind. So if you don't like slippery controls, that this game is definitely one of the slippiest games that you'll come across for certain. Like I said, not necessarily a bad thing, but there are better controlling games. Now, one thing I do want to give the game some credit for is the inventory system. The inventory system that it has for all the different potions and whatnot is actually very well done, to the point where a lot of criticisms I've had with other games of this era, especially like role-playing games, for crying out loud, where this game, basically one of the things it does is it actually explains what a lot of these potions and whatnot do. And you're talking about a platformer. Whereas these are some of the things that you would think would be standard for a lot of games. I mean, even of this time period, yes. So the fact that you could go into the potion screen and say, okay, what does this potion do? And then you can use it. So it's not just, I'm going to have to blindly use this and figure out what it does after the fact. It actually tells you. So that's a really nice feature, in my opinion. Now, the potions themselves, moderately useful. The one where it improves your jumping ability and, I guess basically your jumping ability, I really only found 2 areas in the game where that was actually useful. Now, I probably could have made use of some of these potions a little more efficiently on my playthrough, but I guess from my perspective, it never really was one of those things that I thought about doing. For instance, there is a potion where you can basically clear every enemy on the screen. Were there times where that might have been useful? Possibly. I just never did it for the most part. The yellow attack, where you basically it hurts the bosses. That's a really cool ability, and I made very, very good use of it for the final boss, to say the least. Both times, to be fair, I would hold on to my yellow potions until I got to what was its name, Mad Decap or something. I forget exactly what the main big bad's name was, but yeah, I'd use them and just basically pelt him to death with the yellow energy ball, and it would actually home in on him. And I think it probably any boss that I used it on, it would home in on him and do a lot of damage, which against him was actually probably a very good thing, because he could take a lot as well. A very, very big damage sponge, much more so than any of the other bosses, but that's to be expected. He is the final boss of the game. I don't want to say the game had a lot of cheap kills or hits or anything. I'd say it's a fair challenge. That's the way I would put it. It's not, I mean, there are a couple of areas here and there where it's a little cheesy, but, with enough practice and whatnot, the game itself is actually quite fair. Again, with the slippery controls. But other than that, I think the game it's a really good game. I think my biggest criticism for the game really, I'd say probably the slippery controls, but outside of that, it's just not that challenging for the most part. It's fairly easy. Even, like I said, my second time playing through it, I kind of just smashed through everything for the most part fairly well. Now, a good reason for that may be my familiarity with the game at this point. So it was a lot easier for me to play through. But at the end of the day, I think the game itself was just not exactly what you would consider difficult, at least not in my opinion. As I'm getting distracted by this boss fight, basically. So, I mean, you can see here, I don't even use any potions against this guy, and I just kind of just beat him to death pretty quickly. I mean, the bosses are somewhat damage sponges, and I want to say probably the boss in the 5th level is probably the most annoying one because of them going under the ground. You just couldn't attack them as frequently. But other than that, I mean, the bosses for the most part were just easy. And, yeah, I think overall the game itself was not very challenging. I do want to comment on the retro achievements set for this game. And to a certain extent, the achievement set for this game that I played is kind of ridiculous. We're being 100% honest here. There's 109 achievements on it. So it's definitely a very challenging set of achievements. So if you want to have a good challenge for one of these retro games, I highly recommend giving that set a try. I mean, I'm sitting at currently, after my second playthrough, about halfway through with all the achievements. So I actually got quite a bit of them. I want to say 55 of them. I personally purchased the game on Steam, and I think, it's like the vast majority of Genesis games, it's 99 cents, not on sale. And like many games on Steam, it goes on sale quite frequently. So from that perspective, I'd say this game is definitely a good value. Easy. It's very fun. It's a quick playthrough. I mean, even your first time through, you should beat it in a matter of just a few hours at the most. It's not, as I said multiple times, not too terribly difficult, but it's fun. I'd say it's probably, if I put a number score on it, I'd probably say it's about an 85%. But yeah, I do want to say one thing about Steam. There's really no reason to play it on Steam, and I think the same goes for pretty much any other platform you can get it on, whether it be the Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, or whatever. There's no in-game challenge or achievement for this game. So from that perspective, you might as well play it with your own emulator and get achievements via retro achievements using RetroArch like I did, or any other platform. I think there's other platforms you can use besides RetroArch, but that's what I used, and it works great, and it definitely adds an extra layer of challenge to the game, especially if you're going to try to 100% it. From that perspective, it's definitely how I would recommend giving this game a try. But yeah, it's fun. Like I said, 85% I think is a fair score. Now that I think about it, I think it came out around the same year as Sonic. So yeah, actually, yeah, I think they did come out around the same time. So I'd say it's probably roughly on par with the first Sonic course, first Sonic game. Though I would say I think the Sonic game had better music than this one. To slightly better music, but the music still is good in this game. Definitely worth it at the asking price of 99 cents on Steam, or whatever the entire collection cost is on the other platforms. it's a good deal. So anyway, yep, that's my somewhat rambling thoughts on the game DEcapAttack. Definitely a worthwhile game for your Halloween, playtime, for sure. So anyway, that'll do it for this video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.